All right, we're back. We're back on the carb. So I wanted to show you a couple things. I've been waiting on this float. This float is out of was hand carved from Liberty Motorcycle Specialties in Illinois. The guy's name's Cotton. If you get on the internet, he's all over the place. Everyone knows who Cotton is, it seems like. Very knowledgeable guy. About Linkert carburetors, he's the guru. This came from him. You can get online, you can find his email address, and send him an email and say, hey, send me a float, Cotton, and he sends it to you, and he'll send you the pivot nut, which is the nut that comes through here also if you need it. And when you get it, you send him a check, and that's how he does business. And we don't promote things, obviously. We don't have any sponsors, and we're not making any money. We're just talking about what works. So Rubber Ducky, I guess, is another good float. This is the one that I have used, and it's worked really well. It's got great reviews, etc. If you ever see one of these guys, they're pretty nostalgic. They're made out of brass. They're soldered. They look old school. They are cool. But they're junk, and the reason they're junk is I believe that they're made in I don't know, Taiwan, something like that. And they're not that there's anything wrong with that, but they're just very heavy. They're known to leak, and if you see one like that, get rid of it and get one of these, or get one that you prefer to try. Now, one of the things that I'd like to show you is it's grooved, notched out. So this pivot nut pushes in from the bottom, and let me see. You can see on the nut it has a little barrel, so that you're not compressing against the cork, or it's a foam composite. So you push your nut up in, your screw comes down, the flat part is on the bottom. When you tighten this up and put this in, the forks will look like that. The reason the forks look like that is this is your needle, and as that float rises, here's the seat, which goes into here. And this is inside your bowl, and as your bowl starts to fill with gas, the float starts to rise, and as the float rises, it drops the needle and actually shuts the fuel off. So a couple of things that are key when you put a float in to a Linkert carburetor is when you put this on, you've got some movement here. You want to pull that all the way down, all right? And then we'll tighten this up. You tighten it up enough to, you can compress this nut a little bit into this, but it will snap, so, delicate. So I'm going to get that tightened up, and then I am going to put this in here. The actual, and the way I was showing you that the needle goes in, I was going in the wrong end. It goes in the side, but the seat screws in like this, and this, hang the needle from here, from the float, once it's tight, and then you stick it in here, drop it in, and some of the times you'll have to keep this out first, put that in, put this in with the needle, and then you can take the seat and go ahead and spear the needle and get it tightened up. So once it's tight in there, you want to adjust this to 1/4 of an inch, and I'll show you how to do that just in a second. Let me get this thing set up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so here's what I did. I've got the float lever, which is what I screwed on the float, and the float valve is the needle that's stuck down in this seat here that I screwed on. This is a float, I think it's called a pivot. That's another, by the way. Over here I have a manual. Great to have the manual. That way, there's a lot of pieces to these. You need a manual, but they call it the, I think it's called the float lever pin. Float lever pin. So you need to pull this when you put the float in. A couple things. When you tighten this up, okay, what you want to do is you want to pull this float all the way down this way, and if you look at the manual, you want to take the center of this and you want to offset it to the left approximately a 1/16 of an inch. I think it says 3/64 to a 1/16. And the reason they do that is because when you put this float bowl on the carb, that will be like that, what will happen is you want to miss the back of this that protrudes. You see how it comes out, so you need to pull that float this direction, and you also want to miss this side. The float will rub against there. So if you don't have that set up right, you're either going to get no gas or it's not going to shut. Primarily probably won't shut, and it'll be spilling out this weep hole that for this one I believe is right here. So that's the scoop there. Once you have that in, you turn this upside down, if you can see that, and I will get a measuring utensil, and I'll measure from the base of this to the bottom of this float, and I want 1/4 of an inch. And you can see I have a lot less than 1/4 of an inch. So what you have to do is I will have to bend this brass float lever, and probably have to take it in and out. Who knows? The last couple ones that I did, I probably had out 5, 6, 7 times. Hell, you go backwards, and you know, you have to really kind of pay attention to what you're doing. But what you don't want to do is try to bend it with the float itself, or you'll bust that float. So I take it apart, put it on a vise, true it up, bend it a little bit. So I'm going to take this apart, try to bend it, try to set this up, and cock it a 1/16, 3/64 to a 1/16 to the left, and pull this all the way down. And when this closes, I don't want to be able to draw any fuel out of there, and I do have to have this tightened up while I'm adjusting this. And you can see if it's loose, hopefully you can see how it drops. And if I tighten this up, it raises. So you want to make sure that this is tight. And good practice, I think, to the gasket that's on here. Put a little white lithium grease on both sides so you're not really torquing that gasket. That way you can tighten it, untighten it. You have to take it apart. I'm sure I'll have to take it apart. I'll tell you how many times I had to take it apart to get it adjusted. So with that being said, I'll be back once I think I have it adjusted, and we can go from there. But highly recommend, check out some videos. I've watched multiple ones. Have a manual. Take pictures of your carburetor before you take it apart so that you can at least get back to square one if you need to. All right. So hopefully you can see how I have that float lever chucked up in the vise. I I do that so that I don't bend that at an angle to where that float starts to lean on the left or lean to the right. So that's how I chuck it up to bend it. I need to bend that, I need to push that forward. So once I get this put together, after I do it about 20 times, I'll go back and show you what we do. All right, well, here we are, back again. I've probably had this float lever out at least 10 times, maybe more. I should have timed it. I've had to have been working on this thing for 45 minutes, I would think, give or take. But it is that critical. So I'm going to try to set this to where you can see it. So I'm going to take the float. I'm going to take the float lever. I'm going to push it into the slot of the float. I'm going to take the float pivot nut screw, drop it into the pivot nut, and tighten that down. Okay, when I get right down to where it's just starting to get a little tight, I am going to pull this up. It's a little tight. Pull that up all the way. And then when we put that in, I want this float to be at 3/64 to 1/16 shoved to the left, so I need to push this way. So I'm going to hold this, push my finger against this, gets the float lever, hold it, kind of start to snug this up a little bit. You don't want to get too crazy. You can kind of feel it getting tight. That's good for now. You probably can't see it with the eye, but it's a little bit, a little bit offset. I am then going to take, and one of the things I did, this float valve, okay, fits on like this. I did polish this so it slides really nice. I polished the underside, I polished the top. When that goes in there, the clearance between this top fork and the bottom forks, top piece and the bottom forks, is 3/1000. So I'm pretty good there. So once I get the float valve in, or you can call it a float, a needle, I'm going to take this and I'm going to kind of thread this up in, turn it to where I can see it on this side to get my float lever pin through that hole. I don't know that you can see that. And once that's through that hole, I'll kind of feel until I feel it drop in the hole that's on the opposite side and start to get it threaded. So I got that started. The reason I'm keeping it up is I don't want that needle or the float valve to fall out. It'll slip out pretty easy. So I'll snug this up a little bit. There's no gasket on this pivot screw. So I've got that tight. Now I'm going to take the seat and I have to thread that valve through that hole without it falling out. Oh, yeah, remember this. Don't forget your gasket. So, again, I go a little white lithium grease because some other guy said that, which made a lot of sense. Won't bind. The lithium's not going to hurt anything. But I don't want a bunch of it, so I'm going to wipe that down. Okay? And go back to the drawing board. spread that valve through the seat without dropping it out if I can. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to keep that up, and I will snug this up. Okay, hardly tight. And what I need to do is, as this float actually seals, I need to measure the gap from the bottom of this float bowl to that float. Now, it's supposed to be 1/4 of an inch. So you can use something like this. For me, it's easier to get a set of calipers. Set them to 250 thousandths, which is 1/4 of an inch, which they are set up to 250. And then this piece here protrudes the 1/4 of an inch, and I can take this, and now, and I don't know how I can do, I'll have to go left-handed. And I'll put that in there, and I want to just graze. Hopefully you can see that. Let me see. I don't know if you can. No. I think this thing is dropped. So I'll get over here. I want to go ahead and check that height, that bowl. So that is right at 1/4 of an inch, at 1/4 of an inch, which is wonderful. So the next thing, and I'll see if I can get this maybe set up a little bit. Yeah, maybe that's better. So now I'll take this. Maybe you can see it now. I don't know. And I'll measure that. So that's really nice. So it took me 12 or 13 times, but I'm happy. The next thing you want to do, I polish this pin so everything moves good. You want to do the old suck test. So I open it, gas is coming in, float closes, suck on, see if you can get any air through. If I can get any air through, it's not sealing. And if it's not sealing, about the best thing you can do, take this seat out, turn it over, vise it up, make sure you don't scar it up, but vise this up, put the valve, which is that needle, inside, and take a little rubber hammer and whack it with a rubber hammer or a wood hammer. Plastic hammer, end of a screwdriver will work too, and it'll seat. It'll be great. So I flip this over, half a dozen times. And I'm real happy with that. So that's how you set up your float. You want to make sure it's not dragging at the bottom or dragging on the side. It is offset, you can see that direction, and we should be good. So what I'm going to do now is gasket, put some lithium grease on this gasket, put it here. It'll basically go like that. Then this bowl will go on here. I'll have to take this nut off. My spring's going to drop out. I might as well just do it. Go ahead and put some lithium grease on this. There's a guy out there, I've mentioned him quite a few times, that just like his like his videos. He does a nice job. Pacific Mike. I parrot a lot of things that obviously that he says, and probably the cool thing about doing this, if there's anything cool about it, is as I'm telling you what I'm doing, I'm learning a little better myself. So I guess it's a win-win, eh? And I don't have any idea if you guys can see that or not. I will put that on like that. Okay. I think we're pretty good there. And then a little lithium grease around here just so that that doesn't pinch. Drop my spring back in, and that holds the main jet up in the carburetor. Okay, there we go. I probably don't have a wrench to tighten that, but I will tighten that up now, and then I will try the old suck test again. And the reason I do that is to assure that the float isn't getting caught on the stem that's coming down, which is the reason you pull the float, you actually pull the float this direction and a little bit to the left. So there you go. There's we're pretty close to getting it all put back together. So I will, I guess the next step is we'll start to, when it's time, we'll put it on and try to fire it up. Appreciate you watching. Punch that monkey in the throat, smash that bug, catch that butterfly, whatever you're supposed to do. Thanks for watching.